On 27 November, Cyclone Ditwah made landfall in Sri Lanka, bringing torrential downpours and wreaking havoc across the whole of the island nation. It left more than 400 people dead. By the early hours of November the 28th, it was very clear that Sri Lanka had faced one of its most destructive natural calamities in living memory. From the north to the south, almost no corner of the country was spared. Electricity, water, transport, communications, virtually every public utility imaginable came to a standstill, rendering almost the entire country inaccessible. Today, the 3rd of December, the death toll stands at more than 400, with almost as many missing and feared dead. The humanitarian cost has only been equaled by the economic and infrastructural damage from the cyclone. Bridges, railways, educational institutions including schools and universities, business establishments have all been swept away by landslides and flooding. On social media, Sri Lankans who had very little to call their home are sharing images of entire houses and business establishments being destroyed and submerged by flooding and landslides. They had very little to call their own. Now, even that is gone. These images can never be captured by statistics alone. They add up to a picture of what many see as the worst natural disaster to strike Sri Lanka in more than 20 years. Of course, Sri Lanka has never been a stranger to natural calamities of this scale. From tsunamis to cyclones, it has had its fair share of encounters with such disasters. What makes Cyclone Ditwah stand apart from the rest is that it comes at a very crucial and fragile state in the country's political and economic history. Various estimates put the total infrastructural damage from the disaster at more than $3 or $4 billion, with some going so far as $7 billion. To put this in perspective, $7 billion is the estimate that the government of Sri Lanka targeted for its level of foreign reserves for the end of this year. From an economic perspective, Cyclone Ditwah comes across almost as a nightmare. In April 2022, Sri Lanka defaulted on its sovereign debt, commencing discussions and negotiations with multilateral financial institutions such as the IMF. Cyclone Ditwah adds a whole new dimension to this matter. This year, the Sri Lankan government, headed by the National People's Power Alliance, achieved a series of milestones and landmarks on several fronts, including the fiscal front. From achieving historic tax revenues to nearing towards historic levels of foreign reserves since 2022, it was well on its way towards achieving fiscal sustainability. Now, with massive amounts of money needed for infrastructure development and renovation, it is clear that Sri Lanka will have to renegotiate with multilateral institutions over both international assistance and the terms of debt repayments. Sri Lanka has always been a resilient nation. Images of people sending hordes of dry rations to complete strangers hundreds of miles away have resonated throughout the island nation in the wake of Cyclone Ditwah. However, questions arise over whether Sri Lanka is ready to face the challenges which it will inevitably face over the next few weeks and months. It has been estimated that hundreds of thousands of cultivated land have now been completely swamped by the cyclone. This will lead to shortages and price increases for vegetables and fruits. It is unclear whether agriculture will ever truly recover from the disaster over the next few weeks and months. Agriculture and transportation both affected. Access to food will be a problem for the next few months. Underlying all this is, of course, the humanitarian cost. It is unclear whether the government, relevant state institutions, and the media were proactive enough in warning people about the cyclone. What is clear, however, is that no one would have predicted with absolute certainty and accuracy the scale of destruction that Cyclone Ditwah wreaked in Sri Lanka. As Sri Lanka looks to an uncertain future, it remains mindful of the many challenges it has faced since 2019. From the Easter bombings to the COVID-19 pandemic to the 2022 economic crisis and the hard road towards economic recovery thereafter, it has been one long roller coaster ride for this tiny island nation. Sri Lanka's economic prospects seem to have been carried away by a torrent of muddy water. Yet at the end of a torrent comes a period of calm. How long will it take Sri Lanka to reach that moment of calm? One thing remains clear, however. Sri Lankans remain hopeful of a brighter future on the road ahead, even if that future remains too distant for them to reach anytime soon.